First of all, thank all of you. So thank you so much for coming out, and for a special thank you to my friends, both from Mazatlan that have moved here, and new friends, and just thank you very much. I wanted to tell you that I initially, like the Energizer Bunny, I was so excited about having an opportunity to talk that I was going to make a list. I Googled volunteer positions in IHEHEC, and at least 10 of them. So I got very ambitious, and I started getting email addresses, phone numbers, contacts. I called a few. And then Greg is so lovely. He's such a nice gentleman. I met with him, and I'm telling this, and he very gently said, you know, Nancy, they know. I was like, duh, of course they know. You live here, and I live in Mazatlan. So I don't have a handout. I was going to print out 40, 50. I don't have a handout, but for anybody new that has any interest after this, do what I did, Google it. There's a wealth of information online about how to volunteer. So yes, I am Nancy Tipaldi. I'm an Italian girl from right outside New York, in New Jersey. And we don't say Jersey, which I have to tease you because so many people, a Jersey girl will never say Jersey, but so New Jersey. Okay, so I'm going to talk a little bit first just about jobs I had. And one of the first jobs I had was during the Reagan administration with affirmative action, which means that the government had opportunities, monies to give to women-owned and minority companies to grow. There's this lovely gentleman named Mel Hubbard, and he was new and starting out on his own Meltronics, and he needed an outside sales rep. And we had years together that were really great. We worked together well. But one of the biggest accounts I had was Atlantic City casinos. And thank you God I don't gamble, because that could have been really, really dangerous. But what was wonderful about it is that there were 7 casinos, and I used to have to call on the buyers, and it took sometimes 2 days, sometimes 3 days to set appointments and get in front of them. So he would put me up at a hotel, and even though I don't gamble, I got to go to all the buffets. And I got to go to the show, so that was wonderful. But our biggest account was the casinos, and the biggest supplier was RCA in Burlington, Massachusetts. And the buyer's name was Bill Fox, great guy. We never met him, but we talked to him over the years, and one day Mel said, we really need to go see him. Good deal. So we met with him. It was a good meeting, but then we met with his boss. Well, my boss met with his boss. I was not included in that meeting, and on the flight home, my boss was so quiet, and I kept saying, what's wrong, what's wrong? He said, you know what, Nancy, none of us thought about this, but you as a woman, white woman, should not be repping an African-American company. He's an African-American man, black man, and he could possibly have lost his ranking. So that was the end of Meltronics. In the meantime, I sang in my church, not 9 o'clock or 10:30 Mass. That was a big choir of 40 people. But I sang in something called the Contemporary Music Ensemble. It was 4 voices and 4 instruments at 12 o'clock Mass. And my girlfriend Patty, who sang with me, said that there's an opening, and I'm looking for a job. There's an opening at Avon for a district sales manager. I couldn't imagine what that would be like, but she kept pushing it. So I went to New York City, and I met with a woman who was fantastic, and she hired me. And I'm thinking, piece of cake. Let me tell you what, I'm 75 years old. That is the hardest job I ever had in my life. I managed 430 plus Avon ladies, and one fabulous gay guy who became a district sales manager, and I was like a proud mother. I was so happy. One of my people got to be a district sales manager. But it was it was harder than you think. You think, ding dong, Avon, here's a lipstick. No. No, really, it was very difficult. We had a base salary, which wasn't very much, but in addition, you had to hit 5 indicators, and one of them were new additions. So every 2-week cycle, every 2-week new magazine, I had to put on between 12, 14 new Avon reps. Good luck finding that. It would be outside of supermarkets. It would be like whatever. And then those people, then the next step was retention. I had to hold the ones I had. And that wasn't always easy either, because you come aboard for $20 and you sell to your mother and your sister and your friends and your aunts and your cousins, and then you quit. So retention, I had to keep the number I had, average order. Anyway, it was really a tough job. And I was, what happened eventually, at that point in time, Avon decided no more Avon ladies, we're going online. So the Avon, the typical, I'm sure there are still Avon reps, but not the way it was. So I need a new job. And I lived in Wayne, New Jersey, and I kept passing this building called Dolan and Trainer. Dolan and Trainer, pretty building, I couldn't imagine, so I did a little investigating. It turns out that they were a distributor of stone. And it was mostly DuPont Corian, which is kind of old now, but good product. And I went in and I said to the receptionist, you know, I need a job. And she said, oh, you should interview with this man named Tom Bolger. And I got the interview. And I was an English major and a psych minor in college. And I usually learn about body language and all that. I couldn't read this guy for nothing. I had an hour interview with him, and it was, oh boy, I guess I'm not doing too good, I don't know. I went home, my ex-husband said, how'd you do? I said, damned if I know, I couldn't get it, I didn't know. So, turned out he didn't think my background fit very well, and that's fine. But 2 weeks went by, 3 weeks went by, I need a job. So, I went back to Dolan and Trainer, and I said to the receptionist, if you could give me, if you could ask Tom for 15, 20 minutes of his time, I'd like to ask him, could I have done something better? Could I have done something different? Is my resume, and she said, he's gone. I think they said he fired him. Whatever, bottom line is, she said, meet with these other two women, and I spent 9 years there. And the moral of this story, not to bore you, but the moral of the story is, if you don't ask, you don't get. So it kind of took guts to go in and say, what could I have done better, right? But anyway, so that was Dolan and Trainer, and I worked there for a very long time and very happily. And after Corian, like I said, it got a little bit old, so I left there and went to Silestone, which is a quartz product out of Spain. I spent about 6, 7 years there, and then I went to Caesarstone, which is a quartz product out of Israel. And during this time, now I'm going to tell you how I got to Mexico. During this time, my ex and I bought a home in Wayne, New Jersey, which is about 530,000 people, big city. But there's this section called Pines Lake, this private little beautiful section called Pines Lake. And he was an avid bass fisherman. So we found a little Cape Cod, a little Cape, not the ones on the water. They started at $2 and $3 and $4 million, but 2 blocks off the lake. It was a 7-mile around lake. So we bought this home, and we had 21 really great years. They were very happy years. But during that time, even though he already wanted to fish for bass, he also wanted to take every vacation and go fishing for pike. So, any Canadians? No Canadians? There you go. Lake Nipissing, North Ontario, Canada. Okay, we went for 10 years back to back. And no, it was lovely. Oh no, it's so beautiful. Oh yeah, and the pike we got, I had Clyde on a wall, whatever. But it's the things you do for love, you know. So we fished, and then after 10 years I said to him, honey, please, is there any way we can possibly go somewhere warm? So, oh no, we would go during Memorial Day. There was still ice on the water sometimes. It was cold. So he Googled best bass lakes in the world, and a lake called El Salto came up in Mexico. And we've never been, don't know a thing about Mexico. He said, I want to go for 3 weeks. I said, what about if we go like 2 weeks, and we don't know anything about Mexico. Let's spend a week somewhere. The closest city is Mazatlan. So we came, and the city of Mazatlan is also 500,000 plus population. Big. And it kind of is broken into sections. There's Historic Centro, there's Golden Zone, and there's the Marina. And then there's little sections within all that. So the first year we went, we stayed in the Golden Zone like most gringos do. More English spoken, whatever. It was great. We were in a hotel on the water. The second year we came back, and we went to the Historic Central, and we really liked that a lot. So third year, we were contemplating going again to Central, and I get diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer. Oy vey, let me tell you, that's quite a journey. So, wait. So, I ended up in Memorial Sloan Kettering Cancer Center in New York City, and they saved my life, but it took 6 months, 3 times a week, 6 IVs going into my port. I was bald for over a year, like a year and a half. It was very difficult, but they saved my life, and I'm grateful, beyond grateful. I can't even express how grateful. So I'm here. And actually, today's the 28th, and on September 18th, 10 days ago, it was 14 years that I'm clean. So, yeah. Oh, thanks. Oh, that's sweet. Oh, right. So, but I want to take a little joke in between here. Another lesson, if you don't ask, you don't get. Here's another lesson. Don't be judging and don't be pissy, because I lived in this lake community, and it was lovely. And on the street I lived was a very good girlfriend of mine who was very intelligent and had a great job. But she told me one day that she watches soap operas. And God forgive me here, but I'm like under my breath because I love her. I wouldn't tell her, but I'm going, oh my God, I'm so disappointed. You watch soap operas? Oh my God. Well, okay, guys. I'm in Memorial Sloan Kettering in a recliner for 6 months, 3 times a week, and on ABC Channel 7, General Hospital. 14 years later, I don't miss it. I am so hooked on General Hospital. And it's goofy, and some of the acting is bad, and some of the plot lines are foolish, but I don't care. I love it. I love it with a passion. I really do. Can't help it. Okay, so that's how we ended up in Mexico, because after my insurance maxed out, and I had a good job with good insurance, I still owed almost $500,000 to Sloan Kettering. That was tough. It was long and hard, and the pricing of. So we sold our home and gave them that. I gave them one of my 401ks, gave them that. And you move to Mexico where you can afford to live happily and beautifully. So we moved to Historic Central. I landed on a Friday, and on Saturday morning I walked up to my first volunteer position called the Orfanatorio de los Niños, the girls' orphanage. And I met with a beautiful woman, Rafaela, and we're going back and forth. And I said, I want to volunteer. And she said, oh, that's great, because I need help with him. I'm thinking, I thought I'm in a girls' orphanage, him. Turns out, I didn't even see in this beautiful big room, there's a carriage with a baby, infant. And we said it at the same time. She said, his name is Gabriel. And we both said, oh, like the angel. So the story with Gabriel is that he was, his mother was a 15-year-old drug addict who abandoned the baby. And because of her addiction, he was very lethargic. It took 2 hours to get an ounce of formula in him. However, go forward 6 months, and now he has little cheeks, and he had a little belly, and at 7 months he got adopted. So the thing about adoption at this particular agency anyway, and I think probably in Mazatlan, the other ones too, not all the children are adoptable. Some of them have issues in their home where it could be alcoholism or drug addiction or abuse or whatever. So those kids get to stay in the orphanage until these families hopefully get help. It does happen. And also sometimes I think even some of the families have 7 kids and they just can't afford it. So they're not all adoptable. But I had the most wonderful time. Couldn't speak the language, I just knew there. Didn't speak any Spanish. But I would buy these little kits and make, because it was really all the girls. The baby was the only boy. The infant was the only boy. But we would make jewelry and color and paint and whatever. It was very rewarding. So that's one of the volunteer positions that I really enjoyed a lot. And we did a thing for the kids that it was usually in January. Mazatlan has an incredible aquarium. And it's not just the aquarium itself, but it's on huge grounds. And on those grounds, there were some animals, which upset me, in cages. But there were also like an old train that they could climb on. So each volunteer was responsible for one child. And I have never felt so old in my life the day I took care of Bianca. She was about six or seven. And she was like a chipmunk on speed. Boy, she was all over the place, and I'm chasing her and being with her. She was adorable, and it was a heck of a day, but we used to do that, and that was a lot of fun. Well, go forward 7 years, I'm coming out of my house one day, and this girl is running, Nancy, running. It's Bianca. She went back to her family, and she's a teenager. She had little bugs. I'm like, oh my gosh. So that's a very nice story. Okay. So that was Bianca. Each of the children, they are fed, they're clothed, they're clean, they go to school every day, and it's a Catholic organization, so they also have their sacraments. The only negative thing I think I could say, because there is a sisterhood amongst them, that's amazing. The only negative thing I could say, sometimes the families would come with their siblings and visit and then drive off. And I would think emotionally that would be very difficult for the child. But again, the closeness of these girls, and the older ones, the younger teenagers, would take care of the toddlers and stuff. And by the way, when they're 17, they have an option of going to college, all paid for. Or they can get out, they can go out on their own. Okay, so that's the girls' orphanage. Now, there's a boys' orphanage called Refugio, or Refuge. I'm not quite as involved with this one, but it also is very interesting. The boys are a little older. They're like 9 to 18 years old, and they have jobs within the facility. They have to clean, some of them cook, and they get to learn some responsibility. And the benefactors there is a couple named Nikolai and Guy, and they have now, it started with one apartment. Once the children, the boys, get to 17, 18 years old, they, 4 at a time, go into an apartment, and they get jobs, and they learn to survive on their own. Now there's 3 apartments. So as these people grow, as these boys grow, which I think is absolutely wonderful. And I have a very nice friend of mine who is active in that Refugio, and he said he felt a little resistance about old white people telling these kids what to do. And I said, I'm not quite sure about that. I think it's more about being teenagers. I mean, I don't have kids, but I think it might be a little bit more about being a teenager. But anyway, so that's Refugio. Okay. Amigos de los animales. Friends of the animals. I ended up going immediately, actually a secret, I'm bigger on animals than kids. Shh, don't tell anybody. But, so I went to walk the dogs, but unfortunately I was not able to do that because I was always in contact with my oncologists in New Jersey and New York telling me what happened. There were a lot of dogs and a lot of crates, and the people would go to clean them at 8 o'clock, and I'd go to walk the dogs at 8:30, 9 o'clock, and they didn't get to clean them all, so the dogs would see you, know that you're going to get walked, and they'd be very excited. So when they open the cage, they'd run, and they'd be walking in their own poop, and then they'd be jumping on you because they're happy and excited. So my oncologist said, no, you can't do that. So instead, I got active in fundraising, and we used to have a very big one, a beautiful big fundraiser, and it was a lot of a silent auction. So I would go around to all the restaurants and the nail salons and the hairdressers and ask for 15% off coupon or whatever. So that was very, very successful, but that was a huge job. So now, got a little smaller, at Friends Diner, which is, it's not really a diner, I'm a Jersey girl. By the way, for those of you who don't know, New Jersey is the largest state that has the most amount of diners. So, but it's called Friends Diner, and it's a very nice restaurant and bar, and the people there were wonderful and animal lovers, so they allowed us to have a sale. And so weeks before the sale, above the above the animal shelter is a bazaar where people just donate. So a couple of weeks before, I would go through all the clothes, make sure they're saleable, and all the merchandise. It was great. And then the day of, we would spend the whole day, and people would come and buy, and very reasonable, and all that money went for medicine and to help the animals. While we're talking about friends of the animals, I have a prop. And I have to tell you about this man in my life. Come here, baby. Oh, yeah. Da, da, da. Okay. Now, I hate to do this, but my ex-husband is going to take a hit on this story. But, oh well, he's not here. He's my ex, so, oh well. Okay, so, we were walking, he and I, and we saw this little guy had no hair. It was 108 degrees, and he was a pound. He's 4 now, and look how little. So imagine 1 pound. So he kept saying to me, I don't want a dog. We had cats all our lives. We've had cats. I don't want a dog. I don't want a dog. I said, I can't leave him. I don't want a dog. I don't want a dog. I said, I can't leave him. So I brought him home. He was sulking. And I gave him a bath. While I'm giving him a bath, because his core body temperature was so hot. As I'm bathing him, I hear my ex on the phone with Amigos Animales, where I volunteer. And he said, I don't want a dog, and you have to come and get him. And I'm like, who are you talking to? Amigos. I said, no. He said, look, and we didn't know any better. We had just gotten to Mazatlan, and we really didn't know too much. So I didn't realize that there are rooftop dogs and street dogs, even though they're fed and they're cared for. It's very hard, but I didn't know that. So he said to me, what if he belongs to somebody? What if somebody's looking for this dog? Well, that did it. I'm like, oh, crap. So we get in a Pulmonea, and we drive to the shelter, and a woman who's my friend says to me, you have to sign him over. And I'm like, my New York stuff, oh, I ain't signing nothing. There's no way I'm signing this dog over. So he's like, I'll sign him over. So I take a bus home by myself. By the way, the drive there, I soaked him with tears. I come home, the dog's in the shelter. He comes in about a half an hour after me. And of course, I'm not talking, I'm not feeding him. I'm Italian, I feed you, and I'm nurturing. And I wouldn't look at him, I wouldn't talk to him, I certainly didn't sleep with him. I was so mad. So, 3 days later, I went back to the shelter in case anybody did, and of course nobody claimed him. So his name is Rizzo, R-I-Z-Z-O, and Rizzo has a nickname. What's his nickname, Willie?
The little bastard.
The little bastard. No lie. She gave it to him, and I love it. I'm not offended. I can't get offended by this dog. A couple of Wednesdays ago at the market, Wednesday market here, some guy came up to me and he goes, God, that's an ugly dog. I just laughed, and he's like, oh, I'm sorry. I meant he's so ugly, he's cute. I said, sir, you can't insult me. You cannot hurt my feelings. Love is not a big enough word to tell you about this dog. His name is Rizzo, and it came from Midnight Cowboy, an old movie, Dustin Hoffman and John Voight. Well, Dustin Hoffman's character was called Ratso Rizzo because he was a New York street guy with a limp. And I'm walking here, and Rizzo was a mess, so I left the Ratso, but he is Rizzo. And this dog has gotten me through, and I don't want to cry here, but he has literally gotten me through 3 major hurdles in my life. One of them, after the cancer, he came to me right after the cancer. They told me at Sloan Kettering that you only had a 10 to 12% chance of life. That was it. 14 years later, I'm here, but good grief. I mean, that's a lot to live with. So he kind of calmed my jets about that. He helped me very much to stay calm about that. And then I was my mom's caregiver, and working 70 hours a week, and a husband in the house. But when the cancer, I was her caregiver, and she had a very long, slow, difficult death, Alzheimer's and dementia. It was brutal. You watch this vital woman, just the life get sucked out of her. But again, he was with me every visit. After the cancer, she ended up in a place, but it was within walking distance of me. Okay? Okay. It's all within walking distance of me. So I was there every single day for her, and Rizzo was with me for that. And lastly, my husband of 40 years went away. He just walked out and decided he didn't want to. Yeah, so. And Rizzo was with me for that, because that one was like a train about 100 miles an hour going through me. So that's that. That's Rizzo's story. Thank you, Rizzo, for being such a good boy. The next volunteer position is called the Golden Gate Academy of English in Mazatlan. And this, there was a gentleman, Mexican gentleman, who had this school, and then he passed away, so his son took it over. And his son has had 23 surgeries. His name is Jose Terradita, and he's in a wheelchair. He said he's from California. He's gnarled up. I admire him so much. He's got the best attitude. So he's the teacher at the school, and how this works is we volunteers, after the kids are in school at 4 o'clock, we meet and have a couple of hours, and we could either follow a script or we can freelance talk to them about anything they want. But we can only speak English to them. They can only speak English back to us. And then we grade them, which is hard for me because I love the world. I'm like, oh, he wasn't too good this week. But the reason I am so impressed by this school and this man and these students, they are so inspirational because where I'm from, in the part of New Jersey I'm from, in the community, the Wayne, the Pines Lake Wayne, like I said, I had a humble home, but literally it was really quite lovely. And these kids, when they graduate school, they're so entitled, and they get cars, and the girls get breast implants, and it goes on, and they're just kind of entitled. And not nice to say that as a blanket statement, but a very big percentage. Whereas these children in Juarez, the section of Mazatlan is Juarez, and it's very underdeveloped, the streets aren't even paved. They know that to be bilingual is going to get them out of Juarez, get them into another part of Mazatlan, get them into Guadalajara, get them into Mexico City, get them into the United States, or get them into Canada. And because the volunteers are always U.S. and Canadian people. So it's very rewarding, really. It's incredible how these kids, and you would think after school all day they don't want another couple hours of school, but they're up for it. Now, only once in a while, one or two of the kids would be like, oh, yeah. Okay, so that's the Golden Gate Academy of English. Okay, so here's probably my most fun one, and the last one, and I'm going to talk a little bit about Mazatlan in this. Blue shirts. Blue shirts, Mazatlan is a port city, and the ships come in about 3 to 4 times a week, and usually it's one ship. There are days when there's 2 ships, that's busy. But every once in a while there's 3 ships on the same day. It's like ants at a picnic. It's like, it's great for the city, but wow, you can't move. It's wild. So I choose to be a rover, which means I choose to move around. You can have a spot throughout, it's a historic center, where the people tend to walk around, or you can, I move. I like to go here, 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 here. But I think, yeah, we give out these free maps that say, follow the blue line. So when these people come out of the terminal, the ship parks, they come out of the ramp, and now it's a great distance to get to the street. So we used to be able, the blue shirts, and he's a blue shirt too. We used to be able to ride the trolleys. And the trolley would hold about 30 people. And we would hand out the free maps, or free, yeah, it had about 18 points of interest on this. Follow the blue line is on the front. Then inside was about 18 places of interest. And we used to be able to hand them out. For some reasons, we're not on the trolleys anymore. But we also would talk about safety, which I want to address, because everybody that comes out are very nervous. No one's speaking English. And the thing is, they have the cops and the camouflage outfits carrying these big guns on trucks. And it's meant, in their mind, it's meant to ease them that you're safe here, we're here to protect you. But a lot of times when you see it, it makes you a little nervous when you're not used to it. And the funny thing is now, they only come when it's on a date when the ships are in. I'm like, okay. So it's a double-sided sword. But I used to ride the trolley and tell the kids, if there were not too many kids, but wave to the policemen when you see them. And try try not to be frightened by it, you know. And the blue line ends in the Plaza Machado, which is this beautiful hub. It's huge. The perimeter is restaurants, vendors, music, action, right? Lots of fun. And that's where it ends. And even the Angela Peralta Theater is there. And there's even shops. And I just want to talk about the theater very briefly. This is terrible, but this is the perception. When we were moving out of the United States and moving to Mexico, someone literally asked me, do they wear shoes there? I said, no, only when I go to the opera and the ballet, I wear shoes. Do they wear shoes? It's a shame that there's that much ignorance, you know. So, okay, so safety. I'm going to say this. I feel safer here in Mexico than I do in the United States. There you go. Go ahead. My home in New Jersey was broken into. It was really hard and bad. It turned out to be the kid next door, go figure. But the point is, I feel very safe here. Yes, you know, it's the state of Sinaloa, where Mazatlan is, there's a chatter cartel. But it usually is infighting. They're not looking for us, and I feel safe. There's only one time in 14 years we were told to shelter in place. And I still haven't walked my dog, but so... healthcare. I have to talk fast about this because this is pretty interesting. One bad story, one good story. Bad story. I had a spot in the back of my head. It was itchy. And I went to a... dermatologist? Thank you, a dermatologist. And she said, anyway, we did test. It's cancer. I'm like, oh God, the C word is back. The dread thing of my life. So I was in one of the private hospitals, and I met with the oncologist, and I met with the anesthesiologist before. So I'm on that operating table, and they said, are you ready to go under? I said, yeah, you want me to count? No, think of something. I said, how about a good-looking guy? And they all giggled, and I'm gone. I wake up in recovery with this pounding. Doctor runs over. I said, what the hell? He said, you crashed to the floor. I was on my back like this because they had to do the back of my head. That was a very bad story, and truthfully, it'll never happen again. Anyway, the good story is, go forward years, and I needed total knee replacement surgery, and a different hospital, of course. And the anesthesiologist, I said, I am not going under. There's no way I'm going out again. They're like, no, we can block you. And they did a wonderful job. So, you know, the healthcare there is very, very good. I think they stopped offering insurance even to nationals at 62 or 65. So, but you can have all kinds of private insurance. Housing costs, I have to say, I think it's pretty close to here. Very close to here. Okay. Again, I'm going to remind you here, I won't talk about this, but I am going to remind you here about volunteering. It is good for your mental health, and I know some of you already do, but there's a world outside of us, and you can get away from your phones and your computers and your TV, so do that. Cultural insight, you learn so much compassion. It has given me so much more than I give. When I volunteer, you get so much more back from it, completely. It gives you a sense of purpose and usefulness, contributing to something bigger than yourself. And then you meet new friends, you meet new people from different parts of the world, different parts of the States or Canada or whatever, and it gives you new perspectives. You don't need to have a lot of time. Yeah, you need to commit, but you don't have to do something 7 days a week. You don't have to have any special skills. And most of the time, it's all fun. It's very, very positive. So lastly, I'm going to invite you all to Mazatlan. For anybody who wants to come, I will be your... I will show you around. I love to cook, bake, and eat, so I'll cook Italian for you. So come to Maz, and the only thing, you might not want to come during Carnival, which is fabulous, unless, of course, you like crowds. Last year was over 1 million people came into Mazatlan during Carnival, which is phenomenal for the city. And then the second, right after that, is Moto Week, which I prefer. Moto Week, bikers, lots and lots of bikers. So. And one last, I'm going to leave you with a quote. It's not mine. Winston Churchill says this. He says, we make a living by what we get, but we make a life by what we give. So I say volunteer and adopt. Thank you so much.